the last couple of years have seen some great improvements on the Sir James Mitchell Park. The re-establishment of the natural or semi-natural sandy beaches, the establishment of reasonably natural rocky headlands with native vegetation growing alongside them is a great step forward. The recent consultation process that saw more trees planted in the park is also a step forward for the park. However, what we have to bear in mind is this area was all native vegetation. There are some patches that have been looked after and created. There are other patches that are sadly lacking in their environmental quality. Even the tree plantings that have taken place have been overrun with the introduced weeds that have only been here over the last recent time in terms of this land. However, there are other areas such as the City of Perth where the improvements to the foreshore in South Perth could serve as a great example, both in terms of engaging public with the riverfront and in protecting its environmental integrity. We must remember that this area was once all native vegetation. The only views were from nomadic people on the highlands and along the riverfront, and they weren't concerned about destroying the natural environment to protect those views, because their views were integrated with the natural environment. Now, we've got some great infrastructure here. There's bike paths, walking paths, shelters, barbecues, and plenty of rubbish bins. Certainly not enough for Australia Day, but there are rubbish bins within reasonably easy distance of every place. What does the future hold? Well, certainly if we were to re-establish more native vegetation, we couldn't afford to do it at the cost that has been incurred in planting the minimal amount of trees. You can see, because of the concerns of private landowners about wanting to be able to look at the city buildings, the impact on large areas of the park of the planting that took place recently is absolutely minimal. I drove past here with some friends of mine the other day and told them about the tree planting we'd done, and I said every tree that's been planted has got these steel pickets next to them. And we were driving along the road up there in the background, and they looked across the park and they said, "Where did you plant them?" And the sad thing is there's basically no visual improvement of the ecosystem of this park from the tree planting that recently took place. So where do we go from here? Well, I doubt that the City of South Perth can afford to keep maintaining this introduced weed. The large areas of lawn expanse are just not sustainable economically, environmentally, and even socially. I think it's a bit hard to argue that, for example, that this patch of lawn here is serving a great social purpose. The poor old trees that have been planted, they're already getting taken over by weeds. What I'd like to see is that every one of these native plants, the public visiting this area can find out what the original people of this area knew about those plants and what we can all still learn about them. And whether this takes place through signage or interactive multimedia displays or however it takes place, it's important that all people in this area understand the very rich cultural heritage that existed in the natural environment here. Now, further down the park there were farms. There was an old dairy down there. I don't know a lot about it, but this area was used for growing food. Of course, it was a source of food for Aboriginal people without them needing to grow anything, but the other thing that happened here, of course, is the Chinese market gardens. We've got large areas of flat lawn that aren't used all that often, that could be used to convert community waste in an aesthetically pleasing way into food. And the Chinese used to grow food down here, and we're still getting food from the Chinese, but instead of getting it in our local environment, we're getting it from China. And in this day and age, we all know that there are some changes that need to be made to the way we live, and I'd suggest that this area presents a great opportunity. Instead of importing food from China, we can be converting our own waste into food right here in St James Mitchell Park. Now, in terms of future management of the park, it's presently the responsibility of the City of South Perth. There's a growing trend in the Aboriginal communities amongst their youth and even the older people that they want to have a more hands-on approach to the environment. They want to be doing positive things in the community, and I'd like to see within 5 years this parkland and all of the parklands in the City of South Perth managed by Aboriginal people.